It's great to be here with you again this year. Nestor, when they were talking about your father, your grandfather selling maps, and I was thinking about my great-grandfather too, about that time, and a little before that even, they were living in a sod house. My great-grandfather was living in a sod house in Gove County, and my great-uncle lived in a basement home out near Ulysses, married a girl that was an organist, singer, musician type, and took her out to Ulysses and built a basement home and farmed out there. Kansas is an awesome place. I love Kansas. I don't live here anymore, but I was born here. I have a whole bunch of heritage of Kansas in my blood too, and I'm thrilled to be back here again with you. Grant, that was good information. And no, Brad, thank you. I'm getting older. You can see I'm getting older, but the fact of the matter is this is going to be a good year. You hit it right on the head. He put Grant out to pasture. I understand. I'm following Grant right out the door in another 5 years or so. I love doing this. And let me just tell you something. The enthusiasm in this country is just palpable. I do this 2 or 3 times a week all over the country. Since the first of the year, I've been to Charleston, I've been to Las Vegas, I've been to Tampa, I've been to Miami, I've been to every big city in Texas and Wichita, Kansas. And I can tell you the business enthusiasm the day before the election was kind of not much, and the day after the election, it was on fire. And I've seen that all over this country. It's not just here or your neighbor. It's pretty exciting. You wouldn't notice that if you watched TV. I don't watch TV anymore. I've signed off. I've gone off the grid with TV altogether. But anyhow, there's a lot of enthusiasm out in the marketplace right now. Last year, I had a baseball metaphor for my presentation, playing ball in the later innings. Felt like we were in the 6th inning when I was here last year, and that I said we got another 2 or 3 years to go before we have a natural recession. And in December, just a few months ago, I was still using that. I used it all year. And I said, this is weird, but I thought we were in the 6th or 7th inning in January. And here it is December, 12 months later, and we're still in about the 6th or 7th inning. That was a nice long inning of prosperity in this country. And then we had an election. Last year, everybody wanted to talk about oil and gas. That's all anybody wanted to talk about. It's like I'm up in Minnesota. They want to talk about oil and gas. It's like, why do you even want to talk about it? You don't even have oil and gas here. But everybody wanted to talk about oil and gas, and now everybody wants to talk about the election. They want to talk about Trump. What does Trump mean for the economy in the future? So you know how much I like politics. I've always told people that I was born in Kansas, and they don't have Democrats in Kansas, so I was born a Republican, but 5 years changed parties and became a registered cynic because I don't believe any of them. I'm still a registered cynic that way. So I don't really like talking about politics, and I don't speak fluent politics. So if you'll notice, it doesn't just roll off the tip of my tongue. But I do want to analyze it because that's what I do. I'm not here to give you a Zig Ziglar power positive thinking, let's put some lipstick on a pig and go sell something speech. And I don't have any self-esteem, and I don't care if you do either by the time I'm done here, okay? That's not what we're here for today. What I'm hoping to do is give you some insight on how your customers might be thinking right now and making decisions, and hopefully give you a little bit of information that will help you make good decisions in 2017. And the metaphor that came to my mind was approaching the red line. After the election, approaching the red line came to me. And I have to warn you, I'm using metaphor about cars, and I don't know hardly anything about cars. I drive minivans. I've been driving minivans since the 1980s, and I'm still driving one. But the red line, and so I mentioned that to my wife. I said, I think that's going to be my metaphor for this year. She goes, red line? What is a red line? And I thought, well, I bet there's a lot of people that don't know what that is. So I found the Urban Dictionary. I thought that was kind of cool. A set amount of RPMs which your engine can put out before you pretty much blow it up. Our economy, in my mind, is approaching the red line. And down in Miami, I had a guy come up to me afterwards. He goes, I race cars. And let me tell you, when you get past the red line, your engine does blow up. That's how that works. So I'm learning as I go. This is how I feel like the economy is right now, approaching the red line, and let me explain that to you. This is what I thought the economy looked like in '06 when we were making 107% loans to everybody in America, even those that didn't have a job and no cash and poor credit. We didn't require any documentation. We called them no-doc loans. If you're in a good mood, we called them liar loans if you weren't in a good mood. I called that a grand social experiment to see how it's going to work out. And this is how it worked out 2 years later. This is what it looked like. We decided that's just not a good idea. We won't be doing that anymore. And then a year later, this is what the economy looked like. This is when we needed a president and a Congress to come out and encourage job growth. Ben Bernanke was begging Congress in 2009, 10, 11, 12. Congress, President, you need to do fiscal policy. The only problem is the American people have no clue what fiscal policy is. Ben Bernanke would have been a lot more effective if he'd have turned around and looked at the camera in those discussions and said, you people out in America, you want to know what fiscal policy is? I'm talking about these people here that are asking me all these questions. It's up to them to create an environment to create jobs, and they're failing you. And because of that, I'm going to have to lower interest rates to zero and leave them there forever. No fiscal policy. Back in 2009, our president wasn't interested in that. We had other priorities. Climate change. I remember him saying that climate change was our key economic priority, our key risk. He was interested in health care. He was interested in a lot of other things, but he was not interested in the fiscal policy to create enthusiasm in the business community. Presidents do not create one job. The men and women in this room that own businesses, you're the ones that create jobs. And these people in the president and in the Congress of the United States, they can't create one job. I guess they can hire a bunch of military people if they want to, but their big job is to create an environment that gives you the confidence to begin to hire people again. And the American people right now are in that mood. They're anticipating that this iteration, with this president and with this Congress, they're going to be able to effectively create an environment that will give me enthusiasm and optimism to start hiring more people. That's called effective fiscal policy. We needed that in '09, but what year is this? This isn't '09 anymore. This is 8 years later, 2017, when Donald Trump says that we're going to build bridges and stuff like that. We don't really need that right now, because as I see it right now, this is what the economy looks like today without building bridges anywhere. You see that car? You see that stuff in the middle of the engine sticking out of where the hood's supposed to be? That isn't supposed to be there. That was put in there to make that car do something it really isn't designed to do. That's Ben Bernanke bringing interest rates down to zero so you could get mortgages at 3.75%, and cap rates on commercial real estate get really low, and the values of commercial real estate, the values of stocks, and the value of bonds go to record highs. This is called a fake economy. This is what you do when you have no fiscal policy out of Washington. You put a trick engine in there and try to make it do something it's not designed to do. Now, we don't need this anymore. I've been saying this for about 6 months. We're past this stage now. And if you watch TV at all, you're going to go, I get a lot of blowback from this when I say we're near full employment. People look at me like, well, that's not what I'm hearing on TV. Well, I got some comments about what you're hearing on TV here in just a little bit. Janet Yellen, when she raised interest rates, no, she didn't raise the interest rates. She raised the one interest. Janet Yellen can't raise cap rates on property. Janet Yellen can't raise the 10-year Treasury. Janet Yellen can only raise, when you hear them say the central bank's going to raise rates, that is a lazy statement. She can't raise rates like Greenspan or anybody else can. She can only raise the one rate, and that has nothing to do with cap rates on commercial real estate. Now, with that said, look at this metaphor. She's talking about raising her rate Because what she's really going to do is take that contraption out of the engine. We don't need that fake engine thing anymore. We're going to kind of go normal. We're going to try to normalize interest rates because our economy is strong and we're about full employment. Now, one other metaphor out of this that I saw just by accident when I blew up the picture, do you see the roll bars in there? If you look in that window at the roll bars, that's a perfect metaphor for government regulation. Over-regulation, ruining half of the businesses in this country. This is why people are optimistic. I don't think people are optimistic and thinking Donald Trump's going to spend $1 trillion to build bridges. I think people are optimistic in this country because they think that he will reduce regulation. So the banking industry won't be under the heavy lash of regulation anymore. The farming industry, I talked to a lot of farmers. You probably know this, I didn't. But a farmer can get fined for raising dust when they work out in their farm from the EPA. A farmer could likely get fined if his cows don't have good manners. If you want to be a central banker, you would say, we've got to control bovine extirpation. That's a cow burping. Gas comes out of there, creates global warming. And when that comes out the other end of the cow, it's even worse. So all of these cows that don't have effective manners are causing global warming, and we need to fine farmers for that bad behavior. Won't let your 14-year-old drive a truck anymore, even though the last 3 generations of farmers, their 14-year-olds been driving farm equipment. Why? Because your government knows better than you. You're too stupid to know better. You're from the Midwest. You're in a rural community. You're stupid, and we know better, and we're going to regulate the smithereens out of you. And that's why people voted like they did this year, because they're sick of government telling them what to do. You don't need to clap, because this is not a political rally. I'm not interested. I will never run for politics. If I was president, I'd be impeached in a week, but it'd be a fun week. It'd be lots of fun. And when I got the Nobel Prize, I'd give it back and then throw it in the trash and keep the $1 million. Janet Yellen, just a month or so ago, finally came out and said it. I don't know why she didn't say it last year, because this was totally appropriate last year. I would say at this point, fiscal policy is not obviously needed to provide stimulus to help us get back to full employment. She's saying out loud, Donald Trump, you don't need to build one bridge. Our economy is at full employment without you building one bridge. And so what she's telling the market is, you better strap on your boots, boys and girls, because I'm going to raise rates. We're at full employment. That was my job. That was Bernanke's job. Between the two of us, we're at full employment. We're going to take that motor out of that engine this year. And the only thing that's going to stop them from doing that is if they take it out too fast and the stock market collapses behind it. She's going to try to raise rates every few months. Raise it a quarter. Hope the stock market behaves good. If it does, raise it again. If it does, raise it again. Keep raising until the stock market says no more. See, she tried to do it last year. She could have made that comment last year, because you remember they raised their rate a year ago? And what happened? The stock market went down 10 or 15%. And they said, oh, time out. We were just teasing. We're not going to raise rates again for the rest of this year. Well, she got away with it. They raised rates a few weeks ago, whatever it was. Time's just going by too fast for me. And the market didn't behave bad. And now they're hinting, we're going to do it again. We might do it again soon. We might do it again in March. And the market is responding, okay, so they'll probably do it again in March. And then in March, if the market doesn't respond bad, they'll be saying, you know what, that was kind of fun. We could probably do that again in June. And as long as the market doesn't tank, they'll keep doing it all year. The Fed funds rate, that's the only thing they control. Now, here's something that I've read about for 30 years, and just because the Fed raises their one-day rate doesn't mean that cap rates on commercial real estate could go up at all. It's highly possible. If you were to tell me that the 10-year Treasury rate it's about 2.5 now, it's 3% by the end of the year, or 3.5. I don't think it'll go that high, but if it does, if you were to tell me, Mark, we're just almost certain the 10-year Treasury will go up to 3.5, and boy, cap rates on real estate are going to go up. It's going to crush the values of investment real estate. I would tell you the facts don't support that. I think it's very possible that the 10-year Treasury could go from 2.5 to 3, and cap rates don't go anywhere. It could go from 2.5 to 3.5, and cap rates might not go anywhere. People want to own commercial real estate. If you've ever been here before, you know that Nestor never asks me what I'm going to say. There's no expectation that I sell commercial real estate. I could care less if you buy one piece of commercial real estate. They do, I don't. Okay? But just in case you have a memory like that, last year I was 86%. My 403B was 86% commercial real estate. It's about 87% commercial real estate now because it's outperformed most every other asset class. And I'm still in because I think commercial real estate values, you mentioned kind of maybe peaking. I think that's probably legit. I think prices might continue to rise, but at a slower pace. Now, with that said, this is how I view the economy. We've got a powerful engine here. She's going to take that engine out of that thing, and Trump is going to take some of those roll bars out too. So that car is going to be ready to go. I see the economy right now as this strong, creating jobs, creating a labor shortage, which is creating wage increases, which could create higher inflation, and that will drive the 10-year Treasury up. Janet Yellen will not drive the 10-year Treasury up 1 inch. What will drive the 10-year Treasury up is if you and everybody else in America gets nervous that inflation is around the corner, and right now that's not the case. You don't hear much about labor shortages. I'll mention that in a minute. So if you and I were in a room together with your 3 top executives, the top owners of the firm, and say, hey, let's just brainstorm what 2017 looks like right now. What things should we be thinking about in our business planning? This is the list that I would go through. The economy's still got a lot of energy left. I don't see any room for a recession coming for another couple of years. I don't know how far. I'm not clairvoyant. My PhD was in finance and real estate, not fortune-telling and clairvoyance. But I don't see it coming now. I don't see it coming next year for that matter either. Tax policy changes could be bullish for jobs in the market. That'd be really cool if they cut marginal tax rate for businesses and for corporations. That'd be really cool if they got rid of the alternative minimum tax, made it so you could actually do your tax return in less than 19 hours. With a PhD in accounting. But I'm not sure we'll get tax reform because tax reform requires a Congress. People they just forgot Congress. It's like, well, Donald Trump's in office. He's going to make this happen. You're not going to see any tax reform unless 60 senators say, yeah, we're going to do it. And I personally doubt that. I'm not betting a whole lot of money on it. Me personally, just for my own account, I would assess maybe a 30% chance we get any tax reform, period. There's a lot of people that have vested interest in not seeing marginal taxes lowered. And farmers, real estate professionals, home builders, people that sell tax-exempt mortgage bonds, lots of people get tax benefits and they don't want those to go away. Infrastructure spending is unlikely to happen too. Everybody's just giving on that. I watch just enough. Actually, I don't watch TV. I read it on the internet because that way I don't have to listen to very much of it. But it looks like to me everybody's just a given that Donald Trump's in office. We're going to have lower tax rates. We're going to repatriate a lot of money back to America, and we're going to build bridges. And man, that's going to be inflationary. And that's why interest rates went up a little bit a couple of months ago because people thought that's all going to happen. If that doesn't happen, if we don't get tax reform and we don't do any bridges and stuff like that, we will have just like what we had last year, which is modest growth, which is not all bad. Because we'll get growth if Donald Trump can do nothing else because Congress stonewalls him or sandbags him and won't let him do anything, which I put a 50% chance that will happen. Even if they sandbag him and he can't do anything else, he can reduce regulations that makes it easier to make a mortgage loan or put a pipeline in or make a Clean Water Act just a little easier so that every person, I mean, the federal government basically was getting ready to say, if you got water running down the curb outside of your house, that's a federal waterway and you're subject to federal regulation because of it. If that goes away, if that even gets backed off a little bit, you'll see more land development. You'll see more houses. You got a housing shortage here. There's a housing shortage all over America in any town that has job growth. You can't build them fast enough. Why? Dodd-Frank regulations scared all the banks off from making subdivision loans. You can't get them. That's all Dodd-Frank. That's all that Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Whenever I hear the word bureau, I think of the Soviet Union and Politburo. Okay? That's part of that roll bar in that car that's probably going to be rolled back some. That's why people are optimistic. I think that's why people are optimistic. Not because of tax reform, not because of bridges or anything else, just less regulation. It'll feel better to be alive as a business person. Immigration. Will immigration policy constrict the labor supply? We're going to find that out in a month or two. We're getting ready for prime home building season. You need a lot of people to build houses. If a whole bunch of people that have been helping build houses for the last 30 years are gone for whatever reason, will there be enough people to build homes? We're going to find that out because suppose home builders take down 1,000 building permits. And all of a sudden you find out, wow, they took down 1,000 building permits, but they only started 400. People like me will start calling those home builders and say, what's up with you? How come you're not building the 1,000 that you built? And I'm going to be listening to them to say, well, who's going to build them, Mark? I don't have enough workers. We're going to find that out right away. If you watch TV, you would think that nobody in America, everybody's scared. Everybody's hiding. And man, they're paralyzed. Well, we're going to find out if that's true or not because we should build more homes than we did last year because there's a housing shortage all over this country. So we'll find out in 2 months whether anything you watch on TV is even close to reality, which I'll be completely surprised. New global trade policies could raise the cost of imports. Here's some more malarkey that you get from the media, these little one-sentence sound bites about, oh, he's going to put a tariff on everything, start a trade war with China. We don't need trade policies in this country. We need trading partners, and we don't have them. And we've never had them since the 1980s when we let Japan build everything, take all of our jobs, when we used to make TVs and stereos and cars, and then we signed another trade agreement with Mexico, and now they make all of our furniture, they make all of about virtually everything else, including our cars, and then we make a trade agreement with China, and they make everything else. And what do they buy from us? Here's how our trade agreements work. And as people say, you sound like a candidate right now. Let me tell you something. I've been talking like this for 12 years. I was talking like this before Donald Trump even got an apprentice show, period. All he's doing is telling people what's really going on, and you're not used to hearing it. I'll just ask yourself, what about all the information technology jobs that all went to India? How'd that work out? How about all the manufacturing jobs that went to China? What are these people? A trading partner, here's how that works. I build stuff, you buy it from me, and I get jobs and wealth. And I buy stuff from you, and you get jobs and wealth, and we both succeed. That's a trading partner. Our trade deals have been where, this is how it works. You build all the stuff, I buy everything from you, you get all the jobs, you get all the wealth. That's what we've been doing for the last 30 years. And so I'm thrilled to death that we're talking like that. Don't be afraid of China. China is our subcontractor. China makes everything we buy. What do you think would happen if we stopped buying stuff from China just for a week? How long do you think it would take Walmart to email the supplier in China and say, oh, pal, you need to stop production here because we're not selling anything for the next 10 days? How long do you think it would take for that plant to close? And how long do you think their government lasts when all their manufacturing starts to close down? I'm not recommending we do that, but just don't let the media scare you that we've got a president that's wanting to get a trade agreement where we get some wealth and jobs as they do too. I'm thrilled to death. Is there some risk involved? Of course there is, because China's been used to getting all our jobs and all our wealth. What if we just said, could we get 20% of the jobs and 20% of the wealth? No way, because we're used to getting all of it. So I'm thrilled to death. It's going to be interesting to see. That is a big deal. If we can create some kind of world where we get some jobs and we get some wealth too, that's going to be super cool. That's what I'm hoping for best of all. The Fed definitely is going to try to raise interest rates, and that's going to make the dollar stronger. That's going to be hard for you farmers. When you're trying to sell your wheat overseas to somebody else and their currency isn't worth near as much, it just makes Kansas wheat, Kansas corn more expensive. That's the world you're going to live in. I understand that right now. It's too bad. It's tough. It's how it's working. And every time Janet Yellen says, I'm going to raise my interest rate, the U.S. dollar is likely to get a little stronger and a little stronger. For the next year or two, as she takes that motor out of that engine, she's going to do that by raising interest rates, and the stronger U.S. dollar will make it harder not only for farmers, but for Boeing, for Spirit, for any other company that exports stuff out of the United States. That's just how the world works. Will a labor shortage create wage inflation? I'm going to show you the facts on that in just a second. And will inflation expectations cause interest rates to go up? I'll show you another fact on that in a minute. I personally think we're in about the second year of a bull market for single-family housing. All this talk about millennials never going to buy houses, that's silly. Millennials just were having a hard time getting jobs because old guys like me wouldn't retire from the university. Okay? And so every day that goes by that I'm 63 by the way, but a 68-year-old college professor retires, he or she is going to get replaced by a millennial who's going to get a job at the university for $120,000 a year and stop driving cars for Uber. And when you get a real job, you start to think about having a spouse. And then you start thinking about having children. And then you start thinking about, doggone it, how far is it to the soccer field from downtown here? I think over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a groundswell of people that are 25 to 35 years old now that haven't bought a house that want to buy a house. And there's a Pew study. If you're interested in that, just Google it, Pew study, P-E-W. It's cool outfit. Pew study on housing came out in December. Something like 70% of millennials want to buy a house. And the oil and gas business has turned the corner too. I mentioned that about the oil and gas wars. I got a few comments about that too. Saudi Arabia and OPEC declared war on us in October of 2014, and our president kind of declared war on us too in the oil and gas business when he allowed Iran to become a trading partner. Nobody saw that coming. That's why oil went from 100 down to 30, because nobody saw Iran becoming a new business partner. But everybody kind of got that wrong because we're winning. We're winning the oil and gas war. And I'll show you why. The oil and gas market has turned the corner too. It's cool. It's exciting. I don't want to go into the rest of this tax stuff. I'm going to make this available to Weigands. If you want this, they'll email you this PowerPoint presentation. You got my permission to take my name off of it and give it at the Rotary Club if you want. But this is the House Ways and Committee blueprint for tax reform. I'd love to see it. Wouldn't that be cool if tax rates went down? Wouldn't that be cool if they got rid of the AMT? Wouldn't that be cool if they encouraged charitable giving? Wouldn't that be cool if they eliminate the estate tax, cut deductions for dividends and cap gains, and stop overtaxing American products and lower tax rates to keep jobs in America? All that would be really cool. And the only thing stopping that are people that don't want to let go of the loopholes. Don't get rid of my loophole. Don't worry about it. Don't get rid of my loophole either, or yours or yours. See, half of America loves loopholes. You don't know it. You just think the only people that don't like lower tax rates are people that don't pay tax anyhow. They like to tax rich people. That's not the case. There are a bunch of people that make a lot of money that don't want those loopholes. They'd rather have a higher tax rate than get rid of their loopholes. I see them all the time. There's a bunch of them in the real estate business. I see them all the time. They want lower taxes, but then you say, you want to get rid of any loopholes? Oh, no, don't want to do that. That's why I think this probably won't happen. I hope it does, but I doubt it. Now, the best thing that's happened out of this election to me is that 70% of the American people no longer believe the media at all, and that is a big thing. That is good. I remember maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I said, if you're watching Fox News or MSNBC or CNN for more than 7 minutes a day, not only are you wasting time, but you're causing yourself emotional damage in the process. I mean, I've been on this. This is not news to me. It's like, where was everybody? How did you not know that these people aren't something you can trust? The coolest thing I saw was a week or so after the election, I couldn't believe this, and so I went to their site, and sure, there it is, the New York Times, which is one of the biggest propaganda machines in our country, and they're going, well, it's coming from the publisher himself. He goes, we at the New York Times want to rededicate ourselves to honesty in reporting. It's like, well, hey, that's cool. You at least admit that you haven't been. You're going to give it a try. Do I believe them at all? No way. I've never believed them. I won't believe them again. But anyhow, it's fun that at least they got caught and they're rededicating themselves to honesty in reporting. Then I started thinking about this. I mentioned to you propaganda machine, and I thought, I better know what propaganda is and how it's defined. And in an era of fake news and lack of trust, I don't expect you to trust me either. I don't want you to trust me. That's fine. So I'm quoting everything, including Merriam-Webster dictionary. I didn't want to use Wikipedia because I like this one. This is the gold standard. Propaganda. The spreading of ideas, information, or rumor for the purpose of helping or injuring an institution. That's all I see in the media is nothing but propaganda. In a 24-hour news cycle, I'll bet you there's like 2 minutes of news, and the rest of it is propaganda. And let me just give you an illustration of this. If you look at it for yourself, I'm not picking on CNN. They're totally guilty. They're just nothing but propaganda there. But here's propaganda. Democratic congressman, President Trump's mentally unstable. You see, they're trying to kill his presidency before he even gets there. And we do that. Republicans do that to Democrats. Democrats do that to Republicans. And the media enables that. So if you're watching these news networks for more than a couple of minutes a day, all you're doing is listening to somebody say, he's bad. No, she's bad. That party's bad. No, that party's bad. Nothing but rumor, no facts, no news, nothing that matters. Do you care if somebody said something bad about Donald Trump? How's that going to affect your business today? It affects your personality because it makes you mad maybe if you like him, or it makes you joyous if somebody said something ugly about him, okay? How does that affect your business to sit and watch that junk all the time? And what I'm going to tell you is, you better be careful. I want to warn everybody, if you make any business decisions based on the propaganda that you're seeing in the media, you can make serious wrong decisions. For example, an MIT professor came out 2 weeks before the election. MIT, big Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That's a big deal. Don't have a basketball team that I know of, but pretty smart people for what they know. The MIT professor quoted on CNN and elsewhere, if Donald Trump wins the election, the market could fall 20%. Okay, so in the middle of the night, the election, everybody thought Mrs. Clinton was going to win. And when it became clear she wasn't, some younger people, I bet, or I don't know who, but in the middle of the night started shorting the market in the futures market during the night. Shorted the market down, so when I woke up at 5:30 in the morning, the Dow futures were off 900 points. It looked like the market was going to collapse, and the MIT professor was going to be right. Well, what happened was, here's the moral of this story, never trade stocks in your pajamas, especially in the middle of the night, because you can absolutely get slaughtered, because they traded it, shorted it, traded it down to minus 900, and by the end of the day, it was like up 100 or something like that. Those people absolutely got slaughtered. That's what you do if you listen to drivel and propaganda and make business decisions that way. And if you watch the news now, all you'd think is our country's in chaos. That's the new narrative. He's mentally unstable and the country is in chaos. I don't think so. I don't see that at all. Just pay attention to what's propaganda and not. There is news. I'm not saying just ignore it. But just look for it. Is this news, or is this propaganda, or is this gossip? And the rest of that gossip and propaganda is no good for you as a business decision maker. Yeah, I already mentioned this Gallup poll, Americans' trust in the mass media sinks to a new low. That's great. It's about time. And all this social media stuff, every time some kid tells me they're into social media, I'm going to say, oh, you mean anti-social media? Our economy is now in the 92nd month of our economic expansion. Our economy is not in chaos. It's not the end of time or anything else. And there's no sign of any impending recession. This is the index of leading indicators. When this goes below zero, it's pretty good at forecasting a recession. It's not even trying to go down, let alone approaching zero here. So I don't see any evidence of a recession coming now. And the bullish part of this is the number of people getting a job every month. Somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 Americans getting a job every month. That's about as bullish as you can get. And then on top of that, I'm going to start documenting these. Nobody's going to give Donald Trump credit for anything. I'm not a Trump fan. I didn't even vote for him. I voted for the third person, whatever that was. I wasn't about to vote for one of them, and I wouldn't really want to vote for the other, so I voted for some guy I never heard of because I just wanted people to know that there's a few people in this country that don't like either of these candidates. So I'm not a fan of either one of them. I'm not selling either one. But I'm trying to be realistic in a business perspective here. Sprint's talking about moving thousands of jobs back to the United States. SoftBank, I don't even know who they are, going to invest $50 billion and create 50,000 jobs. This is all out of the Wall Street Journal. Chrysler says it's going to invest $1 billion and create 2,000 new jobs. Amazon's going to create another 100,000 jobs. A Taiwanese company called Foxconn is actually considering moving TV manufacturing back to the United States. When's the last time you ever thought you'd have a TV that's made in America? I mean, that's unheard of. I would have never guessed that in my lifetime. Walmart's going to add 100,000. Hyundai, whatever they make, they're going to invest $3.1 billion in. And General Motors is, they kind of changed their minds like, well, hey, we're kind of, after we saw what happened to Ford talk about moving to Mexico, we're going to do $1 billion. Everybody's going to do $1 billion and create jobs. Okay, that's bullish. They talk about, have you ever heard the phrase, the president is a bully pulpit? That's been around for 100 million years. Donald Trump is using the bully pulpit to create jobs in this country. And the media is just totally dismissing all of it. He's a bully. We got to get rid of bullies. We need to give everybody just a certificate of appreciation. You're going to export 5,000 jobs to Mexico? Hey, fine. We're going to give you a certificate of appreciation for your contribution to the American economy. Here's some more bullishness. Not only are 100 to 300,000 people getting a job every month, but the rate of wages is going up. This is where inflation is starting to kick in. For the last 8 years, I've said no need to worry about inflation. Interest rates are going to stay low. That's been accurate since 2008. It's not accurate anymore because I said inflation wouldn't go up because wages won't go up. Well, when you're in a labor shortage, full employment economy like we are, wages start going up, and there's the proof right there. And that's great. So Americans are getting jobs. Americans are getting pay raises. And what does an American do when they get a job and a pay raise? They buy stuff. Yeah, that's our global competitive advantage. Nobody can outspend an American. And 2/3 of our U.S. economy is simply you going to the mall and buying stuff. And then the last bullish part is this. Household net worth in America is now $90 trillion. I'm going to go back to China just for a minute. The media would tell you, we got to be really careful about China because we make them mad. They might stop buying our treasury bonds. And interest rates would go up, and it would crash commercial real estate and housing. China owns about maybe $2 trillion worth of bar bonds. I don't think it's quite that much anymore. They've been selling a few. They got some problems over there. But $2 trillion. If I was president for a week and China got fussy with me about that, I would just go to the American people and say, hey, you got $90 trillion in your petty cash at home. I want you to come up with $2 trillion and buy all these bonds from China so we don't have to listen to this anymore. Okay? Why am I telling you that? I love China. I hang out with a bunch of Chinese students at Texas A&M, hardworking people, great country. Stupid media trying to scare you that we can't do any trade agreements with China because they might get mad at us and ruin our economy. Meanwhile, they take all our jobs and our wealth. That's what I'm trying to tell you here, is that keep it in perspective. The American people have $90 trillion in net worth, and China only owns about $2 trillion. It would not be the end of time if they did come into the market and say, we're going to sell all our 10 years right now because Donald Trump made us mad. It's fine. Sell them. This surprised me. I mentioned to you that the day after the election, businessmen and women around this country were like giddy, euphoric. I couldn't believe what I was seeing there. But this chart just came out not too long ago. This is the American consumer. This isn't businessmen and women. This is everybody in America. And consumer confidence spiked at the same time, too. This tells me that a whole bunch of people in this country got some optimism that they didn't have before the election. You don't see that in the media either, do you? No optimism, period, anywhere. Chaos, fear, that sort of thing. Small businesses, the percent of them saying they're going to hire people in the next 3 months, it's plateaued at a pretty decent level. We're not in the early stages of an economic recovery. We're in the later innings, and that's what this looks like. But the fact is, still a good chunk of the American people say they're going to hire people. And a percent of them saying it's a good time to expand still looks good. Major corporations, 35% of them say they're going to hire. Only 30% say they're going to lay off. Again, there are industries that are struggling. The ag industry, struggling. Manufacturing, struggling. Oil and gas, struggling. Others are doing quite well. So again, later innings. But here's a number you don't see very often. It's the fact that there are right now 5.5 million jobs open. When people say to me, wow, how can you say we're at full employment when so many people are underemployed? And the U6 unemployment rate and the labor force participation rate. How can you say we're at full employment when so many people aren't working? I can say we're at full employment. This number gets bigger every month. 18 months ago, this was 4.1 million jobs open. Every month it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The fact of the matter is there are quite a few people not working in America, but it's not because there's no jobs available. They're either not qualified to work in America or they don't want to work in America. That's where we're at. And so I don't care what their reasons are. I don't care how many of them are. If you're a viable business and you need labor, you've got a labor shortage, and that's why wages start to go up, because when you don't have enough workers, you have to steal workers from somebody else, and you do that by paying them higher wages. The unemployment rate is back to about where it was. And so that's why Janet Yellen came out 2 months ago and said, we're basically at full employment. We don't need stimulus, and by definition, we don't need monetary policy anymore. So she's telling Trump, you don't need to build bridges, and she's telling everybody else, and we're going to raise interest rates. That's what you do when an economy is at full employment. You don't do that when, woe is me, everybody can't work right now. So you should feel pretty good. There's reason to be enthusiastic about our future. Our country is the strongest economy on earth right now, and by a long shot. And then let me make a few comments about the energy business. Here's our major competitors. You got the Saudis up there in the top right working with MIT. And then you got our new business partner, the Iranians down there, kind of a jovial group, you know, now they're back in the business community. You should invite them to a cocktail party and do some networking. It's like, hey, how's things working out in Tehran these days? You know, you got a business card? Let's be partners. These people declared war on us because they thought if we got oil down to $79.99, the oil and gas industry in America dies. And what were they going to do if we died? Raise the price back up to $120 and laugh at us. It's an economic war. That's all there is to it. Well, they misjudged a lot of things because the price of oil dropped down to about $30 a barrel. And Saudi Arabia, just for one, needs about $85 a barrel to pay their welfare payments to their citizens. It may cost Saudi Arabia very little to produce a barrel of oil, but they need that money to pay for the subsidies. The Saudi people get subsidized for gasoline, for electricity, air conditioning. They get subsidized for a whole lot of things, and it costs the Saudi government about $85 a barrel to do it. And when oil went to $30, Christine Lagarde with the International Monetary Fund came out and told the world, Saudi Arabia, if you don't change your tax policies and your welfare structure, you will be bankrupt in 5 years. Now, since it's the International Monetary Fund, I don't believe them, okay? So I started Googling a little bit. Is this possible? Could the Saudi government? There's a reason I'm telling you this, because there's a reason why oil's not likely to go much lower than this, because Saudi Arabia can't afford to go bankrupt. Back in May, they wanted $80, and then in May last year, the new OPEC president says, $65 is badly needed at the moment. And he cautioned that the security of future supplies is at risk. What does that mean? That means my government could get overthrown and I lose control of my oil supply. That's exactly what that means. Now, with that said, do you think capitalism cares what's a fair price for oil and gas? You suppose private equity people go, hey, I bet that's a good idea. Let's invest and just maybe get an 8% return because the Saudis need a fair price of $65. That's not how capitalism works. They don't get capitalism either. And so capitalism doesn't care what's a fair price is for a capitalist? Whatever rate of return outperforms a freestanding triple net lease right here in Wichita, Kansas. Now, I started Googling this stuff. I don't believe her. So you got to verify stuff. And then I start seeing this. Saudi bin Laden Group, you've heard of them, largest construction company in the Persian Gulf. They got $30 billion in debt, and they haven't paid their subcontractors for months. Why is that? Because the Saudi government won't pay them for projects that they finish. Why won't the Saudi government pay them for projects they finish? Because they're on the verge of going bankrupt with oil at $30 or $40 a barrel. Now you have to ask yourself, is that really true? Possible? Then you start Googling that, and then you go to Google Images, and then here's this one. And there's the news report from the Associated Press. Saudi bin Laden Group employees set fire to buses. Okay? That's a pretty good sign somebody isn't getting paid. At this point, I'm starting to believe Christine Lagarde. When I saw the buses, I thought, I think Christine might be straight shooting with us. Then a few months later, here's another one. This is in August. You read these and you just can't believe it. Thousands of Indian workers in Saudi Arabia haven't been paid for months, prompting India's government to hand out food to hungry workers. The people in India, the government of India was shipping food to India to feed people working in Saudi Arabia because they were starving. That's what you do when you're going bankrupt. Assisting 10,000 Indian workers who New Delhi says are without a job, food, and pay. Now, that's in August. There's a good ending to this particular story because then you see this. Wall Street Journal. This was just a couple of months ago. In October, Saudi Arabia releases $1 billion to help laid-off migrant workers. What did they do? Saudi Arabia cut a check to bin Laden Construction for $1 billion, so Saudi bin Laden could then pay their workers, who then have enough money to get a plane ticket to get out of the country. That's what was happening. They weren't getting paid. They didn't have money for a plane ticket, and they're sitting there starving to death. That's what happens when oil gets to $40 a barrel, gang. I don't care what their cost of production is. They need $87 a barrel. Guess who else needs that kind of money? Vladimir Putin. He's that Russian guy. Remember him? Oh, and he's also a Trump co-conspirator. I remember that too. Okay, whatever you want to make up, I don't know. I hope that's not true. It might be true. A year from now, I'll find out, whoa, that was true. I hope it's not. Let's just hope it's not. But the fact of the matter is, we have defunded Vladimir Putin. And we've also, guess who else needs that kind of money? That would be the Ayatollah of Iran. He needs that kind of money too. We have defunded Iran, we've defunded Russia, and we've defunded all of the Middle East. It's hard to be a bad boy when you got no money. You can talk a big story. And then look at this. This is what I like. I love capitalism, and I love America, and I love all the kids coming out of school with degrees in petroleum engineering and geophysical sciences and chemical engineering and all the rest of those, because our cost of producing oil is just getting lower by the week. Get a load of this. EOG, this one example. Great oil company, one of the better ones. They've got what they call premium drilling locations. If I was the king of Saudi Arabia, I would not like the sound of this. Because a premium drill location means that they can get a 30% IRR after tax at $40 a barrel. We need 87 to keep from going bankrupt, and EOG's going to go lights out at 40. And then the last sentence there, that return could go up to as high as 60% after tax if oil gets to $50 a barrel. There's no secret why the drill rig counts across America started going up when oil got to $45, because with a premium drill site location like that, there's a lot of people in America that think that 40% IRR after tax is a pretty good deal. And I've heard that there's $100 billion in private equity waiting to move in and buy troubled oil and gas assets. And then my last statement here is game on. Rig count jumped by 29%. This is just at the end of January. The rig counts jumped by 29 to a total of 551. It was the largest one week increase in 4 years. Some oil guys quote us in, rig counts are exploding. And then Schlumberger and Halliburton, those are the people that service the wells. They're the ones that have been hurt the most. They're announcing they're going to start raising prices. And what that means is they're getting enough business now, they can tell oil and gas people, you're going to pay us more money going forward. That is super bullish too. The oil and gas industry, in my opinion, keep in mind I'm an economist, that means there's a 50% chance everything I say is wrong. But my opinion is the oil and gas business bottomed out 4 or 5 months ago. We'll see. Interest rates, in my mind, are likely to not go very far at all. The interest rates that matter to commercial real estate owners and people that get a mortgage to buy a house is the 10-year Treasury, and the likelihood of that going up very much is pretty low. A Federal Reserve president that I spoke with one year, he said only fools talk about forecasting interest rates, and I've been doing that for 18 years, so that shows you how I view my own self-esteem. But here's what can keep inflation in check, and it's this gal right here. If inflation gets out of hand at all, she'll start raising interest rates a lot, and she'll raise them enough to make the stock market crash on purpose, and then the recovery's over. It won't take her very long. She doesn't want to do that. She wants the economy to keep going, but she has the power to raise her interest rate high enough until the market does collapse. Inflation, meanwhile, is going nowhere. And then this survey of inflation expectations is also going nowhere. When you hear Janet Yellen testify in Congress, you hear this every year, and Bernanke does too, every 6 months. She'll say, it appears to us at the Fed that inflation expectations appear to be well anchored. What that means is, I looked at this chart of 50 economists who have a 50% chance they don't know what they're talking about, but when you get 50 of them all in one lump, they're probably going to be better. And I looked at that chart, and it's going nowhere. So nobody's expecting inflation in this country. And if we don't build bridges, we're not going to have inflation. If we don't cut taxes, we're not going to get inflation either. I'm not too worried about interest rates going up and sinking cap rates. I would be surprised if cap rates drop 0.1% in 2017. Keep in mind I could be wrong. I'm aware of my limitations as an economist. And a couple of comments, 2 comments. An old economist in Washington, D.C. told me about 15 years ago that every economist should give the words "in conclusion" in their speech to give their audience hope. Okay? These are my last 2 slides. Here's why I'm still bullish about real estate, because frankly, I'll let it speak for itself. Pension funds, Dallas, police and firefighters pension plan, they had to reduce their expected return from 8.5 to 7.25 because they lost money from 2013 to 2015. They lost money. They didn't get any investment. During a period when the economy's going up, stock market's going up, they're losing money. It's because they were in hedge funds and commodities and private equity that didn't work out very well. Now they're getting out of commodities and they're getting out of hedge funds. And when a pension fund gets out of hedge funds and commodities, where do you think they go? Baseball cards? I don't think so. Collectibles, muscle cars, they go into real estate for the most part. CalPERS, the California Pension Plan, wants to cut its expected rate of return from 7.5 down to 7. See, these people are having a hard time earning money. And then this came out just a couple of days ago. It's my last 2 slides. U.S. college endowments. This is Princeton. This is Harvard. This is Yale. This is MIT, including probably Wichita State in that caliber as well. Endowments last year lost almost 2%. The stock market was up 7%, and the endowments lost 2%. In the 12 months they saw, before that, a year earlier, they only made 2.4%. These people, these institutions are just terrible at investing money. Now, their 10-year average has fallen to 5%. Poor return is attributed to international equities, energy and natural resources, commodities, and hedge funds. Hedge funds were the worst performer. Last slide. Which were the best performers? Let's see how that works out. Private equity real estate, 7.1%. Private equity investments, 4.5%. Fixed income bonds, 3.6%. This is why my retirement I don't recommend this for anybody but me, because every wealth manager in this room would say, this dude is crazy for doing this. He's not diversified at all. He's taking an enormous amount of risk. But I'm looking at this. I've seen this for the last decade. Which part of the asset class outperforms every year for pension funds and endowment associations? That would be commercial real estate. It's been doing that for about the last 20 years. And I don't think it's going to stop this year because our economy is creating jobs. Interest rates, I don't think, are going to go up very much. Commercial real estate prices could be near a peak. But being near a peak doesn't mean you go down either. And while you own commercial real estate, you get rental income. Even if the prices don't go up, you get rental income for return. So with that said, I want to thank you for your kind attention. I'm humbled that you're here. I'm grateful that you invited me to be here again, Nestor. It's fun to be in Kansas. I hope this year works out to all of our benefit, and we have a great year as Americans. I'm really hopeful. Thank you for your kind attention.